The film opens with an introduction of our protagonist, a young man named Memo Cruz. He worked in a high-tech factory as a sleep dealer. In this factory, workers like Memo were connected to a network using long cables that plugged into special nodes in their arms. These cables allowed them to control robots and machines remotely that are in other countries. But there was a dark side to this job. The workers were called sleep dealers because if they worked too long, they could collapse from exhaustion or even start seeing things that weren't really there. It was a risky job that took a toll on their health. The story takes us back to Memo's life in a small village called Santa Ana del Rio in Oaxaca, Mexico. Memo lived happily with his family in a cozy house surrounded by wide, open fields and gentle hills. His father was a dedicated farmer who grew crops to feed their family, but everything changed when a private water company named Del Rio built a dam upstream, stopping the river that used to flow through their land. Because of this dam, the people of Santa Ana now had to pay money to get water from the company's facility. This facility was heavily guarded with tall fences, security cameras, and even machine guns, making it hard for anyone to sneak in. Memo and his father had to pay for the water they needed, taking only what they could afford. This situation made Memo feel trapped in a place that had become dry and deserted. Memo's father wanted him to help grow crops on their small piece of land, but Memo had different dreams. He loved electronics and hacking. In his free time, he played with old radio parts and built an electronic antenna that could pick up signals from faraway places. One night, while trying to tune into mysterious signals, Memo accidentally picked up a radio frequency from Del Rio's security headquarters in San Diego, California. He overheard a conversation between a drone operator named Rudy Ramirez and his colleagues. But then, Rudy detected Memo's signal and started tracking his location. Realizing he was in danger, Memo quickly disconnected his equipment before they could find out exactly where he was. The next day, Memo's father asked him to deliver some food crops to his uncle, who lived in another part of the village. Memo decided to hitchhike to his uncle's house. When he arrived, he found his uncle watching the news. To his shock, the news was about Del Rio's mission to stop an aqua terrorist using a military drone. On the live broadcast, Rudy mentioned that they had detected an intercepting device, which turned out to be Memo's own antenna. Understanding that his house was now in danger, Memo and his uncle rushed back to save his father. Unfortunately, they arrived too late. A drone fired a rocket that destroyed their home in an instant. Memo's father crawled out, injured but alive. However, tragedy struck when Rudy's superior mistakenly identified him as a known aqua terrorist and ordered another rocket to be fired. This time, the rocket killed Memo's father. Devastated by the loss, Memo felt guilty and knew he needed to support his family, so he made the tough decision to leave his village and travel to the city to find work. The very next day, Memo packed his few belongings and hopped on a bus to Tijuana. On the bus, he met a freelance writer named Luz Martinez, who sat next to him. Memo noticed that Luz had nodes on her wrists that allowed her to connect to the digital network. Curious, he asked her where he could get nodes like hers. She told him about a person called a Kyotech who could help connect him to the network. Luz also mentioned a black market in the city where he could get the nodes installed for a lower price. Later that evening, Luz returned home and was greeted by her AI assistant, who informed her of a new message. It was from her moneylender, who was pressuring her to repay her debt soon. He threatened to break into her home and take all her belongings if she didn't pay him back. We learned that Luz made money by uploading her memories to an online memory trading company called TrueNode, where people paid to watch her memories. However, she hadn't been able to upload interesting content lately, which was why she was in debt. After thinking for a moment, she decided to upload her memory of meeting Memo on the bus, hoping it would help her financially. Meanwhile, Memo went to a dark alley in Tijuana to find a Kyotech who could install the nodes. These nodes were important because they would allow him to go online and find job opportunities. While wandering around, a man approached Memo and offered to install the nodes for a very low price. Feeling hopeful, Memo agreed, and the man led him to an abandoned location. Suddenly, the man hit Memo with a rod and stole all his money. After a while, Memo woke up, confused and disoriented, and started looking for a place to stay. He eventually found an old abandoned shack at the edge of the city and decided to spend the night there, trying to figure out what to do next. The next morning, Luz woke up with a sense of excitement. She had just found out that a buyer was interested in her story about Memo, and they were willing to pay her a good amount of money for it. Not only that, but they wanted her to write another story about him, this time asking for more details about his life and background. This opportunity thrilled Luz, and she knew she had to find Memo again to gather more information for her new story. After searching around the city, Luz finally spotted Memo sitting alone in a dimly lit alley. She approached him and asked if he had found a Kyotech, hoping he had made progress with his plans. Memo sighed and shared the unfortunate details of his encounter, explaining the trouble he had faced, and wanting to help him and learn more about his situation. Luz offered to take Memo to a special place called a node bar, where she could assist him in getting the nodes he needed. Once they arrived at the node bar, Luz prepared to install the nodes on Memo's body. Just as she was about to begin, she revealed a surprising secret. She was a coyote herself. Memo was taken aback and asked her how she knew so much about this world. Luz explained that she had learned it from her ex-boyfriend who had been involved in the same line of work. As she got ready to install the nodes, she made sure to warn Memo about the risks involved. She explained that there was a possibility of electricity flowing into his body through the nodes if there were any issues, like a virus or a short circuit. She reminded him that while he would have control of the machine, there was also a chance that the machine could take control of him. After getting all the equipment ready for his new job, Memo took off his shirt, which made Luz look away for a brief moment. Finally, he was ready to have the nodes attached to his body, preparing to begin his work as a sleep dealer. The next day, Memo entered a busy factory filled with people working in virtual reality. He was hired for a construction job in San Diego, and was assigned a spot for this virtual work. When he connected the cables to his nodes, he suddenly found himself at the construction site, controlling a robot on one of the tallest buildings. At first, the height made him feel scared, but he took a deep breath, calmed his nerves, and started to work. After a long day of labor, Memo decided to visit Luz at a restaurant to thank her for her help. As they chatted, Luz became curious about Memo's life. He shared that he had come to Tijuana to earn money because his family was struggling. He also mentioned that he enjoyed eating at the Central Market every Sunday night because it reminded him of home and all the good memories he had there. However, when Luz asked about his father, Memo suddenly fell silent and didn't want to talk about it. As the days went by, Memo continued to work hard at the factory and earned a decent amount of money. He made sure to send some of his earnings back home to his family, which brought them joy and gradually eased their financial troubles. However, there was a downside. The nodes were slowly draining his energy, leaving him feeling more tired each day. Meanwhile, Luz was trying to upload more memories of Memo to TrueNode, but her buyers were unhappy because she hadn't provided the background information they were looking for. One of the people asking for this information was Rudy, who was suspicious about what was happening in Santa Ana. Despite these challenges, Memo and Luz began spending more time together, and their friendship blossomed. They started to develop feelings for each other, and soon their friendship evolved into a romantic relationship. One night, while they were at Luz's apartment, they decided to share everything about their lives. They connected their nodes, allowing them to learn every detail about each other. This moment became very special, and they ended up making love, feeling an even deeper connection. The next day, now that Luz knew everything about Memo, she uploaded all the details to TrueNode, including the heartbreaking story of how his father died. When Rudy reviewed this information, he realized that his actions had led to the death of an innocent man, and guilt began to weigh heavily on him. One day, Memo went to visit Luz at her apartment, but he discovered she wasn't home. Just as he was about to leave, a neighbor helped him unlock the door and invited him to wait inside. While he waited, Memo looked around and accidentally stumbled upon Luz's computer. Out of curiosity, he accessed her TrueNode account and found that she had been selling all of his memories. Soon after, Luz came home and saw him watching the memories. She tried to explain herself, but Memo felt betrayed and stormed out, hurt by her actions. From that day on, Memo spent most of his time at the factory, working extra shifts and ignoring how tired and unhealthy he was becoming. Luz wrote him an apology letter and sent him a recording of her memories, but it didn't do much to ease his anger or pain. Meanwhile, Rudy, unable to cope with his guilt, decided he needed to meet Memo. He took a few days off work and drove across the heavily guarded US-Mexican border. He found Memo at the Central Market where he was having dinner. Rudy sat down next to him and confessed that he was the drone operator who had accidentally killed Memo's father. Shocked and frightened, Memo ran away, thinking Rudy might want to harm him too. But Rudy caught up with him and explained that he had been following orders back then and now wanted to help Memo in any way he could. Memo devised a plan and asked Luz for her assistance. Later that night, he went back to the factory, pretending to be on his night shift. After checking that no one was around, he opened the door for Luz and Rudy, sneaking them inside. Luz helped Rudy connect to a machine, allowing him to access the Del Rio security headquarters and take control of his drone. His supervisors noticed something strange and began questioning him, but Rudy tried to act as normal as possible. They instructed him to stop what he was doing, but he ignored them. When they realized Rudy wasn't following their orders, the security team dispatched armed drones to take down his drone. Despite the danger, Rudy skillfully maneuvered away from the attacks and headed toward Santa Ana. After a fierce aerial battle, Rudy reached the Del Rio Water Company and blasted a hole in the dam. Watching this unfold, Memo remembered how his father used to throw pebbles at the dam wall in frustration, hoping for the water to flow again. Following this event, Memo received news from home and neighboring farms, where everyone was celebrating the return of their ancestral waters, even if it might not last forever. Rudy, now unable to return to America, relocated to a village outside Tijuana and began working as a water seller, helping those in need. Meanwhile, Memo decided it was time to move forward with his life. He quit his job at the factory and chose to pursue farming, fulfilling his father's dreams and reconnecting with the land that held many cherished memories.